Hi, everyone. I'm Jim McCullough. I am the Senior Vice President of Real Estate for Vertical Bridge. If you don't know who Vertical Bridge is, we're the largest private tower company in the US. We own a large number of towers, we manage a large number of towers for some of our partners, and we also have exclusive wireless rights to thousands of buildings and rooftops, as well as several hundred thousand billboards and utility structures throughout the US. I manage our managed side of the business, basically all of the sites we don't own, but that we market and manage for others. Prior to COVID, I was basically a road warrior. I live in Seattle, but was technically based in and was frequently in our office in Florida. Additionally, I was regularly visiting our partners and clients all over the US. In 2019, I hit Delta Airlines' highest level frequent flyer in May. However, at the end of February in 2020, my travel stopped completely. I still haven't traveled. Like the rest of you, my life has changed in so many ways, starting with my hair. It's become my middle child science experiment. It was blonde, then green, then blonde, and now it's slowly getting back to normal again. My wife has taken up gardening. I have been immersed in building a new shed, reconfiguring the garage and other big home improvement projects, and have somewhat mastered the art of sourdough bread. 2 of my 3 kids are now back at home with us. One has opted to not go back to college on the East Coast and will be taking the entire semester online. Our lives have changed, all of it in ways that rely more on communications infrastructure than ever before. I am participating in video call after video call after video call and have never been busier. All of us are watching more movies, more videos, consuming more content, and relying on telecom more and more. As a remote employee, though, I was well versed on working remotely. 100% of our systems are on the cloud. Not that it's been perfect, but we were better prepared than a lot of companies. We also use DocuSign extensively. That was not the case for a lot of my friends and colleagues. Not only were they not prepared to work from home, their companies weren't prepared for them to work from home. Their systems were either partly on the cloud or not at all. If a system was designed for 10% of the users to be remote, and now all of a sudden 100% of the users are remote, what happens then? I've heard a number of horror stories from my friends and neighbors in this regard. Do the newly remote employees have access to the other things you think about, like good bandwidth, a desk, external monitors, and keyboards? Surprisingly, one of the things that a lot of Vertical Bridge employees were missing at home was a comfortable chair that they could sit at for hours and hours. Many folks at VB continue to work from their dining room tables. Networks weren't designed for the way that they are being used today. Today, my cell phone rarely works from my house unless I have calling over Wi-Fi enabled or I use it late at night. The data networks on the island near Seattle where I live were not designed for most of the residents and our video-obsessed children to be home 24/7. They were designed for people to be home part of the time and also to be in an office or a hotel or a shopping mall or a gym or even an airplane part of the time. They were designed for our kids to be in school during the day. My internet connection at home, luckily, has been pretty solid, but sometimes it grinds to a screeching halt. A good friend of mine actually has redundant internet connections. His wife is a professor at the University of Washington, and she is conducting this semester's classes online. She can't afford for the internet to be down. In the new world, this is the reality we all face. In fact, one of the reasons I take this presentation is that I was worried about my bandwidth. That and all of the background noise that I have to deal with, like my dog's barking and non-existent intruders. Today's communication infrastructure was designed for the way we previously functioned, not how we operate today or will in the future. As carriers and enterprises alike think about network modifications to better meet the needs of the current business environment, they also face a second hurdle, simultaneously preparing for 5G. The importance of 5G is not lost on network operators and enterprises. They must modify and upgrade their current systems. The next generation of wireless will offer tremendous speeds and low latency. Edge computing will play a big role. I'm going to focus on the infrastructure changes and considerations for enterprises and operators as they adjust their network strategies to the current business environment and for 5G deployment, and in particular, what role does edge computing play? What is the edge? Everyone has a different definition, but to me, edge computing is, in essence, putting computing resources closer to the user or the device at the edge of the network, rather than in a regional or hyperscale data center that might be many miles or hundreds of miles away in the core of the network. By putting data and processing closer to the edge, it will reduce latency, provide more processing of data closer to the edge, and free up valuable bandwidth. The concept has been around for a long time. If you're old like me, think about Akamai and Inktomi 20 years ago. They were all about storing or caching the most frequently requested material on the servers nearer to the people who used it. What processes and data are on the edge versus back at a data center? Does the time of day matter? Does the makeup of a population matter? Does it vary by country? These are great challenges that will be solved by people far smarter than me. Edge computing is, or more appropriately will be, impacted by the pandemic. Again, using where I live as an example, very few people have resumed their normal life. 20,000 people are now using bandwidth from their house all day, every day. In times past, more than half the population would be at work or in school during the day. An edge data center on my island today would need to be designed to accommodate 20,000 full-time users, not 20,000 part-time users. With that as a background, where do 5G and the edge collide? Simply put, telecom companies won't hit their latency targets for 5G without edge. Today, from the cell tower or other connection point, the signal can go over fiber, which is lightning fast, but there's latency still at the speed of light. And if you have to communicate with the data center 2,000 miles away, that's going to be a big hit to latency. It's all about workload. Applications, both desktop and mobile, working with the edge network could make greater use of nearby data and processing power if they didn't have to rely on their own processors or travel back and forth to a large data center. The perfect example or way to think about where 5G and the edge collide, at least to me, is autonomous vehicles. If an autonomous vehicle system operates over 5G mobile networks, the bandwidth and low latency of that network would speed communications to the vehicles and to various roadside sensors. Once the signal reaches the nearest 5G node, where does it go from there? How long does it take to process? What if all of a sudden there is a bandwidth issue? Not a huge deal on a normal basis, but in a life or death situation or other important application, you want the data processed right there, or as close to right there as practical and feasible. So what hurdles exist for edge today? From a practical standpoint, end users and companies will need to be assured that their information remains secure and well managed when trusting it to a vendor. In addition, IT leaders will need to build solutions and processes that account for the fact that bandwidth from the edge to the core data center may very well be more limited. Maintenance will need to be largely automated. From a deployment standpoint, many of the hurdles going forward will be the same ones that affect general network deployment today. Zoning, permitting, fiber. Fiber is very important for edge. Power, expansion rights, et cetera, et cetera. The nice thing about edge is there are no line of sight requirements. We have multiple edge installations currently underway at Vertical Bridge, either fully deployed or in process. Yes, they need real estate, but they typically don't need the best real estate. In addition to installations at our towers, we are installing one as we speak in the back of a mall at one of our retail partners' locations. As opposed to a cell site where we need to focus on aesthetic and structural issues, we don't with edge. Basically just pick a spot and plop it down. I think the biggest hurdle though is the business case. Who is going to use? How are they going to use? When are they going to use? And how much are they paying or getting paid? We get more answers with each new day. Guess what? There are a group of assets that are perfect for edge. They have power, fiber, ground space, backup power, generally aren't super attractive to start with, and are in good locations and well maintained. Yes, towers, and to an extent, land and rooftops as well. Why do we care about edge? It's simple, revenue. Vertical Bridge and most tower companies are really real estate companies, digital real estate companies. We lease our space on our towers or buildings or land that we either own or control the rights to. Leasing to an edge company is revenue to us and helps our partners deploy their networks. It's not really our core business historically, but it is a great add-on to our core business today. We're better to put an edge data center than a place that already has fiber and power and is already largely entitled. Also, edge doesn't need line of sight, so there's nothing on our steel. We don't lose the rad center, it's all on the ground. The locations are attractive already due to their proximity to population bases. We have edge installations at our towers, and really all they need is ground space, fiber, and power. Luckily, we have the space for them inside our fenced-off premises. Specifically, what can we do to make our assets more attractive? 1, be a good partner. This is new to everyone. We're all learning. 2, have plenty of fiber. Fiber is huge. Edge doesn't happen without fiber. Have I mentioned fiber? 3, have robust power. 4, have expansion rights if you don't own the dirt. Depending on your ground lease, you may have to give some of the revenue to the underlying ground owner. In addition to all that, if you have managed sites like rooftops or shopping centers where you control the rights, in addition to what I just mentioned, have a good relationship with the landlord. It's new for most of us, and we're not going to get it 100% right the first time. We've had to change our documents a bit to accommodate the edge. Landlords can make your life easy or difficult. If you are on this side of the business, focus on your landlord relationships. While edge is a great concept and technology, it's still somewhat premature. With a large workforce working remotely, there has been a shift in network traffic. No longer is the daytime network traffic high in central business districts. It is in residential areas, though. As operators think about edge, they will have to plan for both normal business operations as well as operations in time of the pandemic. My guess is that it is a very long time before things get back to normal, whatever normal is. As I've discussed already, 5G doesn't happen without the edge. It's all about bandwidth and speed. Every large telecom company and every large company with an online presence are thinking and talking about and planning for the edge. Looking at this in sort of a morbid fashion, the pandemic has been a positive thing for telecommunications infrastructure, which was already a great business. Every business is pivoting towards more remote workers. People are ordering more and more online. And I don't know about you, but I don't see a lot of us going back to the old ways. For Vertical Bridge, we certainly have had some hiccups, but we have proven that we can run our business with a remote workforce. While we are planning for the day when we get back to normal, and I do look forward to that, my guess is we will not pivot fully back to the way we operated before. Edge is perfectly suited for something like the pandemic. Nothing has stressed our networks and changed traffic patterns like the pandemic. Network traffic in some countries has surged more than 70% during the pandemic. Telcos are under enormous pressure to deliver quality and consistent infrastructure. Edge will play a large part in helping ease the stress on their networks, particularly when you factor in 5G. Companies that take advantage of the edge will have a competitive advantage over ones that don't. It's quite simple. Between cell and media and access to applications, businesses of any sort can't afford high latency and downgraded applications. They just can't. Businesses, applications, and data must move as close to the starting point as possible, reducing overall round-trip time and allowing real-time access. My company uses Microsoft 365, basically hosted versions of the Microsoft suite of products. We used it when we were in the office, and we use it now that we aren't. Generally, the performance has been good, but there have been a few days where the applications were very, very slow. To me, this seems like a perfect application to put on the edge. Also, when I think about ordering groceries online, wouldn't it be more appropriate to have my local store's inventory at the edge rather than at a remote data center thousands of miles away? In addition to more appropriately powering a remote workforce and servicing online processing, other frequently mentioned applications for 5G and edge computing include remote healthcare, autonomous cars, augmented reality, industrial automation, predictive maintenance via IoT, and video monitoring. I do hope that we get back to normal, whatever that means, soon. In the meantime, we have to adjust to the new normal. Edge will play a big role no matter what the new normal is. Thanks so much for your time today. I'm happy to field any questions that any of you have. Additionally, feel free to reach out to me at jmccullough@verticalbridge.com. Thank you.